instead like try to think like why certain stuff is happening, what drives the betting. Ask yourself where are the margins are, what is my weakest value raise, what is the best hand to bluff. These kind of questions you should ask yourself when studying with solvers, I think. That's okay. The first spot that is going to come to mind is like this low jack versus big blind. So we have this 9-8-5 board where like if you run the solver with like multiple bet sizes, you're gonna get strategy something like this, where you can bet some hands small size, bet some hands 50%, bet some hands with 75, and check some hands, right? So while this strategy is going to gain us a lot of EV, where like some hands really wants to go for specific sizings, I think simplifying this strategy is just gonna make our life way easier. Like the problem is like when you do this kind of very complicated strategies, the idea is this, that like we want to use more simple strategies. So as you can see here, for example, instead of using this multiple bet size, we can just use check and bet 60. So when I look at this board, I would just think to myself like how I want to play this as simple as possible to still retain the most EV. Like yes, there is obviously some hands that are very vulnerable, that wants to go bigger sizes, but I don't want to play like 3 multiple sizes. I'm just basically gonna play check and bet 60 here, and as you can see here, it's not gonna really lose EV. So the EV is going to stay the same pretty much. So it's going to be 3.8 in both sims. And like looking at this and looking at this, like it is just way simpler to play strategy like that. And also like you don't have to think about, oh, I bet B75 on the flop, so on the turn I'm not going to have like, so for example, like I'm not going to have enough ace accents or whatever. Like you don't kind of have to worry about the later streets and which sizes you use. It's just going to be very hard to implement this multiple bet strategies. So playing it simple and just like some boards, like would definitely like we cannot really simplify and play one size only on all boards, but like we can try to use as simple strategy as possible while still making sure that we retaining all of our EV. The way you can see like this kind of board. So let's open like this this same situation here. So we're gonna go big blind versus low jack at 30 big blinds, and we're gonna look for. So we're gonna open these pre-flop ranges, and now we have this option to solve post-flop. So we're gonna click here, and the solver will ask us now to confirm the ranges and everything. So the board we're looking was like 9-8-5 rainbow. The one thing you want to do, like when you're running sims here, like you want to make sure that you want to go for like now we want to for just bet 60, right? Because it's just going to be more efficient for us to look at the sim that way, check the pre-flop ranges if they're correct. If you want, you can even remove some hands, add some hands if you don't think that the population is going to play ranges like this. And yeah, instead of like these 3 sizings, we can just make like check and bet 60 and go from here. And you just click analyze, and the solver is going to run it, and it's going to be, as you can see, done very quickly. So yeah, from here you can now browse to the spot. So we go check, and now we see that like we bet basically 66% of our range for bet 60 size, and checking 34%. And then like yeah, we can go through all the nodes that we are interested in and see how, always like important to see like how population how villain is going to play and if he's going to respond like this. If you think anything here is maybe some overfolds or something, then we can we want to go back and adjust our strategy for sure. So next thing, next spot that illustrates the same point, basically trying to simplify. This is a little bit different because maybe in this kind of spots we still want to use multiple bet sizes, and there is a still decent benefit of having bigger bet sizes, and that will result in some EV loss. So if you really want to get into like all the nitty-gritty details and like learn to play this board with multiple bet sizes, which I think is like, if you're playing high stakes is important, but if you're not, if you're just like want to play like solid good strategy, I think it doesn't really need to bother you too much. I think it's going to be way better to play simple strategy correct than like trying to play very complicated strategy like this, for example, with more bet sizes, with all the hands choosing different bet sizes. So I think the same strategy here, like basically you can just bet your range for 25 or bet 30. So and if you look how they respond, so even this strategy with a lot of our hands can be even better, because we're probably going to see some overfolds. So let's see this one. So 40 big blinds, cutoff versus big blind. Okay, so we're going to go back to tournaments, 40 blinds, big blind versus this button, right? Or cutoff. Okay, cutoff. Big blind versus cutoff. Again, we're going to go for solve post flop. Ace king 5 rainbow. We're gonna use this one with all bet sizes available. Just to take a quick look. And the important thing is, again, going back to like not trying to copy the solver outputs. It's just like, and not like using your hands to say like, oh, like we have Jack 10 is just a big bet. Like trying to understand why for example, Jack 10 is a big bet, right? So can someone tell me like why we want to bet Jack 10 big size here? Like what is the first thing that you wanna look, for example? So why Jack 10 is betting big, but like Queen Jack suited is not betting big, or like let's say Queen 9 off. Most of the time you're just gonna see so the big size here is actually bet 100, so bet the pot bet here. So and actually like the first thing, like usually always the bet sizes are really trying to like force money with our value hands. Like it's what drives the betting here basically. So it's like we have some really strong hands that he doesn't, right? So we have ace queen that he doesn't have really here, a big blind versus cutoff. So we have some very strong hands, and this board is going to be static basically, and we're going to be able to go 3 streets very often in this type of boards. And actually this board is like more draw heavy than it looks, right? There is actually going to be a lot of draws, right? So if he goes small here, he will be calling hands like offsuit broadways, like queen jack, queen 10, and this is one of the reasons why Jack 10, for example, wants to go big. So if you go big here, he's gonna fold immediately hands like queen 10, hand like queen jack is gonna be indifferent. Most guys from population, I feel like, is gonna fold. Like these hands becomes indifferent as well, and as well as these low hands like let's say like 5x, whatever. So you always want to look at his strategy basically, and he's always going to call you with all of the weaker aces that he has. So it is very very nice for our value to go for this big size on the flop. So these hands gains the most EV basically, like ace queen, ace jack. These very strong hands gains the most EV from this. However, if you don't want to bother with all of this, which is completely fine, I think, like you can just play more simple strategy that's even going to maybe gain more EV from population. So like we can just go back, right? So yeah, when they check that, 4.6 is our EV. So if you go back now, back to configuration here and do again like ace king 5 rainbow. And now instead of this, we're gonna do B30, let's say, or like even B25. And it is done. So we basically bet range for a very small size. Yes, we're losing some EV, but it's not that significant, I think. And if you look at how they should respond here, can we see some hands that overfolds here? Probably not. Like this is a board where it's somewhat into actually they're gonna overfold. Like they need to call like 7-4, right? They need to call 6-4. They need to raise sometimes with this. They need to call 7-6. So like immediately when you look at, they need to call 8-7 of hearts here, right, against a small bet. So when you look these kind of things, you can see that there is going to be some overfolds here. So like our bluffs are basically gonna strongly benefit from betting small sizes here. And yeah, like playing this simplified strategy is just going to gain pretty much the same EV. So you don't need to bother too much. Like you can study some other things instead of going into all the details. But if you are, which is completely fine, I think if you want to play like more complicated strategy, like you don't need to play 4 sizes here. You can just play check, bet small, and bet huge. So like 2 sizes on two bet sizes, bet small and bet really big, which is completely fine. But you kind of have to like try to go here and understand which combos you're betting, look at the entire range, which combos falls out better hands that you're dominated by, and like how solver construct ranges. Try to remember that for similar spots, instead of just like looking at one. Try to change board, try to change like if same things happen on ace queen 5, if same thing happen on ace jack 5, right? Try to study like that. Okay, so moving on to the next spot where I think population is trying to copy solver outputs, where don't really think about villain strategy, right? So I have a question for you guys, okay? This is a spot 40 big blinds, cutoff open, button calls. Okay, so single raise spot. The board is 9-8-7 with a flush draw, right? Let's say you're on the cutoff. So how often you're going to bet? So cutoff, single raise spot, 40 BB, 9-8-7 flush draw, right? So how often you guys bet here? Do you check range here? Do you bet like 20% of your range? Do you bet 50% of the range? So you raise pre-flop 40 big blinds, and we got this 9-8-7 board. So I'm interested what kind of strategy you're using here. Okay, so it seems like not much betting really, like either bet 25% or bet 50. So yeah, I also think this is going to be a board where population is not going to bet at all too much. Like they're just gonna check a lot of hands, so they're gonna bet like some very vulnerable hands maybe, but most of the range they're just gonna check, right? So on this board there is some like kind of non-intuitive strategy where out of position c bets quite a lot, like 65%, right? What I'm trying to get here is like that when you're on the button here, the solver is going to tell you that you bet like roughly half of the range, a little bit more, right? Which happens a lot in this single raise spot when you're in position against cutoff, for example. What do you guys think is going to happen when we make the ranges more like population ranges? So let's say a hand like Jack 9 here is betting almost always, right? So you can basically play a hand and you have Jack 9 here and you bet and you're like, oh, okay, my play is GTO, so like this is the best play, I want to do this. What do you think is going to happen if we change the range closer to what population is doing, right? Do you think we can still bet? So yeah, like I think we all agree that population is not playing this aggressive on this type of boards. The main reason here is that out of position is going to have all of these offsuit 9x and 9 high boards are going to be really good for out of position here. Also, like he's going to connect on these boards, this board with all of this stuff here, with all of the offsuit stuff. He's going to have some sort of draws, so he can play really aggressive, which I think most of the population is not going to recognize. And that it will result, especially with playing a lot of tables, and it's just like I see a lot of checks from out of position. And what is important is then to not play that many steps here, because like we're playing against way different range. So we're not playing, this strategy only makes sense if we're playing against 35% only check, right? So what I did the same situation, but I make cutoff check the range. So yeah, this is drastic, but I can see a lot of people playing a strategy like that on this type of boards. So when they check range, what's going to happen is we play completely different strategy. There is no small bet anymore at all because they don't have that many auto folds anymore, right? Their range is much stronger. So when we get to this node, we kind of have to be really careful. So a hand like Jack 9 that we bet for a small size before, doesn't really do that. So it's completely different strategy. So this is why it's important to always look at both sides and always try to think about how they're gonna play if our population is playing like this. Because like if you just solely look at the solver outputs, it's just not gonna make any sense. Like here, we play now completely different strategy. I think this is kind of important to really think about how they're gonna play instead of just trying to input the ranges and look at the sim and try to like copy what you see there. There's gonna be another one where there is a different point, still like the same range, and still going back to like trying to play more simplified strategy. So on Jack 10-6, same situation, basically 40 big blinds, single raise spot. So for example, here, we're supposed to bet like 25% of the range. So bet like some very, very vulnerable hands like queens, kings, aces, bet some hands like 9-7, bet some hands like queen 8. And yeah, like this is going to be our like GTO strategy, right? And when we check, they're going to step around 50% of the size, 50% of the time for a small size, which is again a strategy that you're going to see a lot for imposition in this type of spots. So what I suggest doing here in this type of spots, I mean Jack 10-6 board specifically, I think we can simplify this again, right? So what do you think? Are we going to lose a lot of EV if we, instead of this, just play check entire range? Nope. Yeah, exactly. Like, so what's gonna happen is first, like if you play, like we're gonna get, so remember this number, okay? So 46. So we're gonna write this down, okay? So our EV here is, this is how much we are capturing basically. GTO strategy captures 4677. So this is only if you're playing like all of the other nodes very good, like the GTO, right? And if we select all of these right combos for bluffing and right combos for value, whatever, right? So what we can do instead, we can just go and play like check range in this board, where instead of that, we're going to get a little bit less EV. So how much is this? Okay, so this is check range is getting 45.85. This is going to be less than 1% of the pot, right? So it's not going to be that significant. 46.77. Sorry about that. 46.77 minus 45.85. So it's less than 1% of the pot. So it's not that huge difference. However, what I think here is going to happen, we're even going to gain more EV. Why? Because like when we check here with our entire range, even if they play GTO, we're not like losing any of the EV. But what they're gonna do, they're gonna do what everyone is doing. Basically, they're gonna try to replicate what they see in the solvers. Like, so they're gonna go and play this strategy, right? From before, they're gonna just bet 50% of their range. However, they don't know that we checked a lot of strong hands, and it's just different strategy. They cannot really replicate what they see in solver. They cannot like say, oh, like I'm playing GTO. And even if they play GTO, all the other streets, we're just like losing only 1% of the EV. So that's the thing really. And like we can go even further, and if you think we can maximally exploit them, we can just bet only our stronger hands and then check all of the other stuff really. If you think they're not going to put enough, if you think they're passive players that are not going to put money in for us, then we can put some strong hands in our betting range. But yeah, my point is also like simplifying strategy is very important. So even if you look here, for example, so Jack 10-6 with bets, like this is how big this sim is. So it's when we check range, we cut the sim to half basically. So it's much less nodes. So it's much less complicated for us to play, right? And there is bigger likelihood that we're going to execute stronger strategies when we when we can start more simple. So when we cut like 2 bet sizes on the flop, we're just going to cut the sim to the half, and it's going to be much less nodes and bigger chance that we play better. There is a bigger chance that they're going to try to copy the solver, and they're going to make even bigger mistakes, and we're going to gain even more EV, so we can even outperform GTS strategy. Okay, so to the last point, and we're going to get to the questions. So just I want to highlight that you kind of don't want to go solely to check like, yeah, let's see if my hand is like a GTO raise. Like instead of that, like you want to see like your entire strategy and does it make sense and how often you want to use it, and if you can see some overfolds from him, this kind of stuff, instead of just like solely looking if your hand is like GTO. So for example, you can take a look here, go to this same spot, 30 blinds, and again go for solve post flop. And the board is ace 10 7 rainbow, and we want to click analyze. So one thing that we see here is that he wants to use check and bet 50. We don't think population is going to do this, so we want to change that size. So we want to go back to configuration. So the first thing, like we see that like they're supposed to use bigger bet sizes here on this board, and we know that population is not really going to do that. They can even cheat, they can bet like, so some stronger hands in a bigger size and some weaker hands here. So that's going to be like pretty good for us to check raise wider. But we want to go back here and make sure that we put just smaller sizes available. So EP2, we're gonna let him bet 30%, and we're gonna remove these sizes for now. So maybe, so I'm gonna allow for one very big size on the turn. So just to, because this goes to the turn as well, do not skew the sim. And you can always change for turn. You can, like when you get to the turn, when choosing the turn card, you can change, you can add sizes for the turn basically. So now if he goes more for bet 30, and now we can look at our strategies. But the important thing is like not only looking at this one, but just looking at like what are the best bluffing candidates here? What are our value threshold basically? You can do it on the flop as well. Just click flop cards on the table. Okay, thanks. What is important here is to not look solely at Jack 9 and say like, oh, okay, I can raise sometimes, I can call most of the time. But the important thing is like, what is my value threshold? So like you ask yourself a few questions. So how wide I am going for value here? So that's kind of important. So we go like ace queen, we go like, yeah, two pairs are obvious, but the weakest hand that we go for value is basically ace 9. So like if you're not using ace 9, like if you're not using ace 8 suited, if you're not using this type of hands, we cannot really raise this Jack 9, right? So we kind of make sure that we have complete strategy basically. And then the next thing is what I'm going to look, instead of just looking at Jack 9, is like what are our best bluffing candidates, right? So what seems to be best bluffing candidates? So this region here, right? So Jack 7, Jack 8, like these type of hands with backdoor flush draws seems to be like a really good bluffing candidates. So like bottom pair that blocks his two pairs, blocks his sets, and has additional equity in form of like backdoor flush draw and backdoor straight draw. These kind of hands are going to be really good candidates for bluffing. 8-6 also a pretty nice one. Yeah, backdoor flush draw gutter, exactly. Yeah, so like always look at these kind of things, like what's my value, like which hands, how wide I have to go with the value, what are my weakest value raise, and then what are my best bluffs. So like then you can use that for some other spots as well, instead of just like checking if your hand does something, you know. So the last hand for today is gonna be this one, that I think it illustrates the point of like, it's just like pretty worthless looking at solely what your hand does. I had this hand somewhere. Yeah, okay, here. So we open, we bet flop for small size, he calls, we bet turn for big size, he calls. And the question is like, now do we bluff the river? And the important thing is like not to look like if your hand is like played in GTO, but just look like there is few other very important things here. So how his range is gonna look. Is he gonna believe us, right? Like that's the question. Like, is he going, do you guys think like he's gonna fold like some queens here on the river, right? So like this is very early in a tournament, like he can re-enter. Like the question is like what type of guy he is, right? To look at the sim quickly, and we're gonna go to our assumptions then. Check, and we bet 30, and he calls, and turn is use of spades, and we check. So also like look at the turn. So for turn, like we want to bet half of the time, and the size is, we want to go for a big size, which is good, and call. And the river was 6 of clubs, so he checked. So also like when you see this, so he has some leads on the river. This is like not gonna happen too much. So like when you see this, it's almost worthless looking at this sim. Like the population is not really going to play like this. So when you bet huge on the turn, when you overbet, they're not gonna lead river really. So you kind of have to node log this part here. And this is why it's important really to not go here and say, so, okay, so ace-5 of diamonds is pure bluff. And instead of doing that, like, so let's see how he needs to respond. So if you go all in, he needs to fold king-queen most of the time. So do you guys think that people are gonna fold king-queen here in the first levels when we go all in here? How you feel like? Are they folding king-queen most of the time? No. Yeah, exactly. Like, they're just not gonna do that. I mean, so this is why it's important to like do a lot of node block type, not to chance. Yeah, exactly. Not here. Yeah, I mean, like they can fold in some other when there is some more pressure, but here it's just like not gonna happen really. And they're also not gonna have any leads on the river after they call a huge size. So looking at the sim just for checking if my hand is GTO and like just making sure that, oh, did I punt it here? Like, oh, my so you can say to your friends, so yeah, like my hand is GTO, like GTO is pure bluffing this hand. Yeah, like the guy's just gonna call age because he just don't care, right? I mean, this illustrates very good how like looking at solver outputs is sometimes really worthless. More important that like looking at specific combo is like trying to learn something from this. So the one thing that I see here that is very interesting is like a leading on the river, right? So instead of like looking at this, like we can say, oh, okay, so he should have some river leads. And let's see why is that, right? So it's going to happen because he has actually 60% equity. So when he calls our big bet on the turn, we're going to have so many draws and stuff that missed, and he's going to always have something, right? He cannot really call many weak hands. And that will result in him having a lead. And this is a lead for a very small size for 10%, which actually like targets our weak stuff, whatever. But yeah, like focusing on this kind of stuff, looking at the whole picture instead of just looking at one combo and trying to make yourself right, you know, like just trying to say like, oh, okay, I did it good, you know, like solver is bluffing, so I'm bluffing too. Where like solver expect him to fold stuff like king queen, whatever, and the size is also not good, so we want to go for a smaller size instead of all in. So yeah, the solver is counting on him folding stuff like king queen, folding stuff like, yeah, I mean, it's just not gonna really happen. So always look at what do you feel like he's gonna do, and try to look at the sims with node locks, and like you don't even have to node lock in Pi. You can just like think about it and try to make sense of your strategy rather than just trying to check your hands. Basically, always try to learn something when you're studying with post-flop solver. And okay, so we're gonna go now to the questions that you guys have. So like, is there anything that any of these spots that you want to go like more clear explanations maybe, or is there anything that you guys feel like population is doing wrong, you know, in terms of like studying with solvers? People for sure overcomplicate. Yeah, like I agree with that. And there is no point for that. Like that will result in like strategies that are not really that good. And also like it's gonna make them easier to play against. Like, well, what I feel like population is really doing is they're giving away their hand with bet sizes a lot. Like they're not playing balanced ranges in many spots where they use size that their hand wants to use instead of thinking like what my range wants to do here, and they GTOing themselves instead of playing simplified. Can you solve ICM or it's GPV? For now, yeah, for now it is GPV. What you can do, I guess, so I guess you can just run spot with ICM ranges, but it's not gonna count ICM post flop. So for somewhere where it's, for example, 50% field, it's gonna be small risk premium, so around like 4%. So maybe you can, for this spot, you can probably even solve with this kind of ranges. It's not gonna be huge impact in post flop play, I feel like, but you can already take, yeah. I would say like you can probably already start with like 50% field left. It's going to be small risk premium. Post-flop play is not changed that much really. It doesn't count for any more post-flop we're running, but still can work with that. Yeah. I think, yeah, main points here is really like try to understand what's going on, like try to remember, try to use some mechanics that you see, like that you can use for other spots, because that makes studying with solvers way more efficient. If you're just looking at isolated spot or isolated hand, you're not going to get very far. Instead, like try to think like why some certain stuff is happening, what drives the betting. Ask yourself where are the margins are, what is my weakest value raise, what is the best hand to bluff. These kind of questions you should ask yourself when studying with solvers, I think. So I think many people play IC and post flop where less betting, small sizes occur way more often than see on FT replays. Yeah, I think like population is still playing like very much GPE strategies, really. From solvers, I mainly look at stuff that I don't do at all and trying to understand why the solver is doing. Yeah, this is also a good point. Yeah, look at the spots where you never do it and try to understand why. What is solver trying to achieve here? Also, never be locked on single street, but explore the whole tree. Yes, very important to explore always. Always look at the villains respond. Like remember this, it is very sensitive to outputs. Like it's just solved based on like the villain strategy. So and you guys saw like when you start making changes, alter the strategies completely. So always try to think about like how we can gain most EV, like where population is going to make most mistakes, what kind of strategy is going to be easiest for us to play and make them make most mistakes, basically. What solver are you using? It seems very fast to solve. Is it some public solver? So yeah, that's the question for Preflop Academy, guys. I don't know that. We are going to introduce node locks soon. Okay, looking forward to it. That's going to be great. So imagine doing that. Yeah, like that's going to be great. Like do you have any time frame when we can expect this? Like doing node locks would be amazing, really, this fast. Late June probably. Nice. Definitely looking forward to that. Also, like one thing that I didn't mention is also maybe make sure that when you're running sims, use the ranges that you feel like population is going to play. For example, these BVB spots. So let's say big blind versus small blind open. So at 20 big blinds, for example, you see that big blinds range has all of the 8s and 9s and 10s and jacks and queens, even like a lot of suited aces, which I think, I'm not sure, like, what do you guys think? But I feel like population is not really going to play these kind of ranges. They're not going to have this many pocket pairs. They're going to do something different with that. So like try to use the ranges that they're going to have. They're not really going to play like this in a lot of spots. There is some other examples of this, but yeah, like make sure that you're using the ranges that you feel like your population is going to play. Yeah, let me know any more questions, or we can call it a session for today. Have fun using this post-flop solver, and yeah, make sure to like use it efficiently rather than just trying to just see like solver outputs and try to copy it. Yeah, thanks guys for all the questions. Thanks for being with me today, and good luck at the tables. Good luck for Scoop. Bye guys.